Hey, welcome back. Here we are, continuing with Exodus chapter 30, verse 29. And I will just scan this verse first. Let's scan it together, and then we will translate. V'kidashta otam v'hayu kodesh kadashim kol hanogei'a bahem yikdash. All right. V'kidashto. So the verbal root is kuf or kof, if you like to call that guy. It looks like a P. Dalet shin. So kadash, many of you know that, right? To be holy. Kadash. But this is a PL form of the verb, indicated by a strong dagesh in the dalet. So I should probably try to make that obvious for the auditory learners. Kidashto. Right? So there's two dalets there. So the PL usually intensifies the meaning of the verbal root a bit. So this really means something like to be kadash in the call is to be holy, and the PL is like to, it can be like to designate as holy. Oftentimes that's the meaning, like to set something apart as being holy, right? Like when you go through and you look at your sheep and you're choosing which ones are going to be the gift to Adonai, you're doing the PL of this verb. You're designating something as holy, right? You point in that one, right? And then that sheep is holy, right? But it can also sometimes take on a similar meaning with hefil. This happens with other verbs in the PL at times too, because the intensive nature of the verbal stem, you're like intensifying it. It can also end up being like hefil, like causative, right? So kodesh, the hefil, pardon me, the PL of kadash, can end up meaning to sanctify, even, right? So I'm just going to go with the first meaning, even though it probably is the second one, but you just kind of feel through it. I want you to get used to thinking of it as designate. So kidash to, you designated as holy. Okay. But we have involved conversive. Dun da da da. That is going to change things. So instead of kidash to, you designated as holy, it's vekidash to, and shall designate as holy you, or shall sanctify you. What will we sanctify? We have the definite direct object marker, ot, with the suffix am. That means them. Vekidash to otam, and you shall designate as holy them. Vehayu. So hayu, it's from the verb haya, to be, and hayu is a plural, so that's they were. But again, we have a vav conversive, so vehayu, and they shall be. What will they be? Da kodesh kadashim. So we have a construct chain here. Da kodesh. Kodesh is holy of kadashim, holies. So they should be holy of holies. Like, it's literally saying a holiness, kodesh, of holinesses, right? Or a holiness of holiness. Oftentimes a plural of a noun kind of gives you an abstract idea, right? So a holiness of holinesses, or holiness of holies, or holiness of holy. Note, this is not the holy of holies. We would need to make the last word definite, ha, right? But it's not that. And one thing in favor of interpreting the יקדש to, as you shall anoint, pardon me, not anoint, as you shall sanctify, is Ibn Ezra points out that the sanctification is, quote, with oil, right? So, but still, that's also designating as oil, designating as holy. So you can kind of see, I hope you're starting to see how, when you think about it in the PL, in the Hebrew, designating something as holy and sanctifying it, it's not really, you're kind of splitting hairs that might not be there sometimes. You know? The Talmud teaches that when you designate something as holy, when you specify, for example, that particular sheep as holy to the Lord, you can't use it anymore for any mundane usage. It's now a sin if you like shear its, I want to say fur, shear its wool, and then use that for yourself to make a sweater for your kid or something like that. So really, the act of designating it as holy, from holy lips, it really is already holy, right? So in this case, rather than lips, it's the oil, the act of the oil that's doing it, according to Ibn Ezra. Okay, so again, the kidashta, and you shall designate as holy, or you shall sanctify otam, them, the hayu, and they will be kodesh, or actually the kodesh, holiness of kadashim, of holinesses, right? You could understand they'll be most holy, right? Is really what it's saying. They'll be most holy, like us. They're going to be so holy that, well, the next of the verse is going to, I won't give it away. The part B is going to tell you that kol hanogei'a, anyone or anything, that kol can be either way, ha or hanogei'a. Ha, that's the, literally the, and then we have a participle here from naga, nun gimel ayin. Some of you might know this word already if you've met me face to face. Then you know that I am what's called shomer. Some say shomer no nagia. Some say shomer nega. It's safeguard from touching, which means that, like, if you're a woman, I won't shake your hand, right? Not as an offense to you being a woman or something. Just it's a nice hedge for people to do, right? To not touch the opposite sex who is not a member of your family, right? So if you already know that term, then you get this word for free. Naga is to touch, right, or touching. So kol hanogei'a. Oftentimes the Torah will use a hey. If you're familiar with modern Hebrew, this can be useful, or maybe you've seen this before. I know we've done this in the Kohelet class because that's late biblical Hebrew, where you have a sheen as a prefix on a word. This happens a lot in modern dialect. She is short for asher. Meaning who or which, right? Maybe I should write that out. Who or which. It can also mean other things like when or where, etc. But in the Torah, oftentimes, it doesn't use ever the she, right? This is a late biblical Hebrew development, this asher becoming she. So what the Torah will do, if it doesn't want to actually explicitly say asher, it will put ha in front of a participle. So nogei'a, it's a participle. It's like one touching, right? So ha nogei'a is literally the one touching, right? But we understand this, it's expressing as asher. So kol asher nogei'a, anyone who touches, you see, or anything which touches, right? So either one of those works there. So you can get used to that. Bahem. Bahem. That's bait. Hey, mem. So the hem is them. And the bait is against or in, right? So literally, kol hanogei'a. I almost said shomer. I almost said hashomer. My brain was going to substitute because we talked about shomer and negia before. So, kol hanogei'a bahem. Anyone who touches against them. Yikdash, yikdash, yod, kof, or kuf, however you like to call it, dalet, sheen. So again, we have kadash. This is actually, don't be fooled, this is the call version of that verb, okay? Even though if you're watching the screen here, it might be a bit confusing because you can see there's a dagesh. There's a dagesh, but it is just call. Why is that dagesh there? What is going on? Well, he's there because of the bump schwa rule. There's a schwa just in front of him, a silent schwa. And so dalet is one of our begadkhafat letters. You guys remember those? Begadkhafat. The begadkhafat letters. That's the mnemonic. Begadkhafat. Those are the letters that make that sound. So, come back. Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei or Fei, and Tav. We should have said begadkhafat, so that we wouldn't confuse Kuf or Tet with either of those. But anyway, so because Dalet, he is the D in the begadkhafat. The begadkhafat rule says that any of those letters, if they are not preceded by a vowel sound, they get a weak dagesh. And that is what we have right here, my friends. It's a weak dagesh glowing inside the dalet if you're a visual learner and watching. Okay, so this is not a PL. We did have a PL up above. The yikdash to. Here are the two dalets. The yikdash to. And you shall sanctify, right? But here, that dalet is for, the dagesh is for a different reason. It's just because he's a begadkhafat letter, right? And there's a short schwa in front, which means the syllable splits right there. That's the split of the syllable. So it's yik. See, it's silent now. There's no vowel sound. Dash. Okay? So the yikdash, the yik means he. He will be holy. So who will be holy? Who's the he? Kol hanogei'a. Anyone who touches, or anything which touches bahem, against them, yikdash. He will be holy, or it will be holy. You could say become holy as well. Now Rashi points out that this is really useful for the temple service because it means if you have some kind of holy, sacred vessel, then anything that you put inside of it becomes intrinsically kadosh, holy. So it can be rendered unusable in various ways, but it cannot return to secular status, right? It can't ever go back to being used for something mundane. Now, Rav Papa in the Talmud says that it's meant to exclude handfuls of meal offerings that were not sanctified in utensils consecrated for the temple service, etc. He goes on to basically explain that only things that are meant for the temple service would be sanctified in this way, consecrated in this way, right? And you can find that in Talmud Zevachim, page 83b, as referenced by Rashi. Okay, let's read through it again. This time you try to translate before I do. Ykdash to, and you shall sanctify, or you shall designate as holy. That was kiddash for those of you listening only. Otam, them. V'hayu, and they shall be da kodesh kadashim. Da kodesh, holiness of kadashim, holinesses, or holiness of holies, right? So a holy of holies, something like that. So extremely holy, or the most holy, the most sacred. Kol hanogei'a, anyone or anything which nogei'a touches bahem, against ham, them, yikdash, he will become holy, or it will be holy. Again, the dalet is only with a dagesh because the begadkhafat rule. Okay, I'm going to read it one more time. This time, kind of a normal speed without tones and such, and you do your best to understand. V'kidash otam v'hayu kodesh kadashim kol hanogei'a bahem yikdash. How'd you guys do? You do all right? Okay, I think let's try to squeeze in one more verse. Let's do verse 30. I may pick up the speed a little bit for this one, so remember you can slow it down. If you're watching on Patreon, you can slow it down there. It has controls for playback speed, and YouTube does as well. All right, first I will scan Exodus chapter 30, verse 30. Vet Aharon vet banaiv tishmach v'kidash otam lechahen li. All right. Ve'et Aharon. If you're watching, it's in gray because that's a name. And Aharon, that's Aaron. Yay, Aaron. Ve'et banaiv, and the banim of Iv, and his banim. Right, so just a quick review on the construct plural for a common or masculine noun. If you have banim, the mem goes away, and that's basically what we've got here, right? And that's how you make it say of. That's what's happening. So literally, banaiv says the banai, the sons of Vav, of him, the sons of him. So we just say his sons. So ve'et Aharon ve'et banaiv, and Aaron and his sons. Now that could mean children, but in this context, we're talking about the kahuna, the priesthood. Oh, that's the big kahuna. Is that saying from that? I think kahuna means something in Hawaiian. I know we have some Hawaiian listeners. Would you please leave me a comment down below? I want to know, what does kahuna mean? Is it like a nut or something? Because kahuna in Hebrew means the priesthood. Ha kahuna, the priesthood. He's the big kahuna, right? He's the big nut, the big priest. I know. Anyway, let me know. Mahalo. Okay. Tishmach. Tishmach. So the tu means you shall mashach. Mem, shin, chet. Mashach is to anoint, just like Mashiach is an anointed one. Could be anointed to be king, could be anointed to be priest, we could be talking about Ha-Mashiach, could mean the Messiah or one of those other things. So Tishmach, you shall anoint, yikdash to, and you shall designate as holy or sanctify, otam, them, lechahein. Now this is a verb, it's an infinitive, lechahein. It's a bit hard to recognize the binyan if you care about that. That is the verbal root, because hey cannot take a dagesh, but the vowel pattern is still what we would expect. This is actually a PL. You don't have to know this, but I know some of you care about that stuff. So I'll give the datum for those who care about it. Okay? It's a PL. It means like to officiate as a priest, to act as a priest, to be a Kohen, basically, to priest. Le chahen is to priest. Li, the lamed means for, and the e means me. All right, one more time. You try to translate before I do. Again, we're a little bit faster with this last verse. Ve'et Aharon, and Aaron, ve'et banaiv, and the sons of him. Tishmach, you shall anoint. So speaking to Moshe. Ykdash, and you shall sanctify or designate as holy. Otam, them. Lechahein, to act as priest, literally to priest. Li, for me. All right, let's read it one more time. No tones or anything, just normal reading. Just do your best to understand. Sit back and relax. Ve'et Aharon ve'et banaiv, Tishmach, ve'kiddash otam, lechahein li. All right, guys, it's been great having you. Special thanks to my patrons out there. I really appreciate you guys. If you haven't done so, please go over to my Patreon page. That can be found at www.patreon.com/Hebrew literacy. That's patreon.com/Hebrew literacy. And sign up for a free account. I do have freebies over there for those at the free tier as well. And I'd appreciate just to have you there. And if you want to support us, that's really a big help. You really will help us to continue to make these teachings, and with about 1,200 videos and more on the way, you can really go all the way with your biblical Hebrew. See you next time. Shalom, shalom.